Everyone's ready?
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for being here. I'm State Senator Foung Hawj, Chair of the Environment, Climate, and Legacy Committee. And I'm here with my colleague, both House and the Senate, who care deeply about Minnesota's boundary water. And so do I, as an outdoorsman who value conservation and a frequent visitor to our pristine water area, the boundary water, where I brought my family and friends to generate the economy for the last 30 years. This morning, the U.S. Senate voted to allow mining on federal lands that would threaten the boundary waters. It's clear that they chose foreign corporation interests over Minnesotans. And people who support this say that it will create jobs for the Northlands. But they also, and we also forever polluted the water and land of that region. The pristine water and the environmental or ecological environment are what we need to protect for us and our future generation, along with wildlife. So today, you will hear from my colleague who dedicate their career in protecting our state waters. We'll start with Representative Steve Cwodzinski and followed by Senator McEwen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Senator. In Buju, Ozawa Anakwad, Nagizin and Dodem. The name that my spirits know me as is Ozawa Anakwad, which is Yellow Cloud, but my government name is Steve Cwodzinski. I am proud to represent Duluth. And I'm here feeling very teary today. It's a dark and cloudy day for Minnesota, for Native peoples, and importantly, our homelands. The Boundary Waters Canoe area, which is what we've been gathered here fighting for and protecting, is not just a wilderness area, but it is homelands. And on that note, I also want to recognize the Native American Caucus that is here, and Senator Mary Kunesh, and Representative Heather Keeler, and Representative Shelley Buck. Coming with heavy hearts with the vote to open up our homelands to foreign mining operations. And I am also here with a deep pride of being an Ojibwe person from the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, which the Boundary Waters Canoe area is firmly in our ceded territory of the 1854, which my ancestors 7 generations back fought for at the Treaty of La Pointe. We all know that our representative in Pete Stauber, our Republican congressperson, has defied Minnesotans. The 70% of Minnesotans who are standing up for water, especially in this place, has violated the supreme law of the land, in that is in treaties, in unconscionable acts that will harm future generations of Minnesotans. But being from Grand Portage, I wanted to share a message from them, as well as the Minnesota Chippewa tribes, which they've been desperately making pleas to have not done this, and that is something that as Native peoples, as Black and Brown and Indigenous communities know what it's like to go unheard and in fact to fight against. But the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, Boys Fort, as well as the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Chippewa retain fishing, gathering rights that extend throughout the entire northeast portion of the state of Minnesota under this Treaty of La Pointe of 1854. Despite our legal rights, there has been no government-to-government consultation between the bands and the U.S. Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture, or Representative Stauber regarding any process of which the Department of Congress commenced to rescind in the Rainy River mineral withdrawal and leases that commence in the vote this morning. Federal courts have long recognized treaty-reserved hunting and fishing rights And this action substantially degrades our rights and our future. While the Grand Portage ban supports mining when it can be done safely, we know that there is no instance where copper sulfide mining has been done in a way that doesn't create irreversible, perpetual damage that ends up getting footed off the backs of state, local, and tribal governments. There's so much more to say, but what I'll say is that we know as Native people that what happens to the land happens to us and vice versa. And this is not the end. As Minnesota state legislators, we play a key role in making sure that these leases that are going to run through the MPCA and DNR in the governor's office, that it is a hell no from Minnesota. It is a hell no from the state of Minnesota. And it is a hell no from Minnesota's Native people.
That's right.
Hello, thank you for being here today. My name is Jen McEwen. I am the state senator who represents the community of Duluth. And the big message that I really want to share, in addition to the things that Representative Kozlowski just shared, is that now is the time for Minnesota elected officials to act. We have had a number of bills, and some people may talk about some of those bills today. I have a bill, Prove It First, that I have introduced when I came into the Senate in 2021, that would require that any of these copper, nickel, non-ferrous mining proposals, in order to be permitted in Minnesota, would first have to show an example of a mine of this type opened in the United States for 10 years and then closed for 10 years that did not pollute the environment around it. And as Representative Kozlowski said, that has never been done. So what these companies have always been proposing is to come here to our communities and to run an experiment on our people and on our waters. And my community of Duluth, for years, has been asking only that simple question: could you prove it first? Could you show us that you could do this safely? And we were shut down. We've been shut down. We were shut down when we asked for an evidentiary hearing on the Polymet proposal. An evidentiary hearing that would just lay out the pros and the cons, evidence that was non-biased so we could actually get a look at the evidence. We were told no. We were shut down by industry. So what has happened today is another one of these instances where corporate power, these billion-dollar international mining conglomerates, they have set their sights on our people to use for our labor, on our communities, on our waters, on our land, to offset their costs on us, and to take and take and take and take again. And they can't do it out in the open. They can't do it by proving it first. They can't do it by following the laws of our land. They have to do end runs while they tell us to follow the process. Yeah? So they tell us to follow our process. They tell us how amazing our laws are here in Minnesota. And then they're not even willing to follow those laws. Instead, they do these weird procedural maneuvers up at the U.S. Capitol, as Rep. Kozlowski said, a huge betrayal by the representative from Northeast Minnesota, Pete Stauber. Betrayal of our people. To use this procedural maneuver to take away this protection that we all depended on for so long. But now, my takeaway message for all of you is that we no longer have those federal protections in place. We used to be able to say, well, we may have some corruption, some good old boy networks, some things happening here in Minnesota that are trouble, but at least we have the feds. We know they'll come in at the end of the day and they'll protect us. We don't have that anymore. So it's going to be on us. The buck is going to have to stop with us, or not at all, or we will lose it. And if we lose this, we do not get it back. That's right. So my call on my colleagues, on Governor Walz, on our agencies, is to hold the line and to act now. We have these bills filed. We have had them filed for years. We need action at the state level now to protect our people and our waters. So more to come, but they're asking for this fight, they're going to get it.
Hamadako Dakota ia Padewachoda Makiapie, English ia Shalibaka Makiapie. Hello, my relatives. My Dakota name is Manny Buffalo. My English name is Shelley Buck. I am the representative for District 47A and a member of the Prairie Island Indian community. My Dakota people call Minnesota our homelands, the place of our birth. The waters is something that's very important to my people. We wouldn't be here without the waters here in Minnesota. And while we no longer live up in that area, my ancestors have stories about that area and our people. And it's important that we fight not only for our natural relatives, because when we take care of them, they take care of us, but we also need to fight for tribal sovereignty and make sure that those treaty rights are upheld, not only for the Anishinaabe people, but also for the Dakota people and other people who call this place home. It's a place that all of you come and enjoy. So I'm stand with all of my colleagues on both sides to fight back on this. And not only do we as legislators have a role in this, but so does all of Minnesotans. That's right. You can make sure your voices are heard come Election Day. Make sure that the people you elect into office on all levels have the same values that you hold. So it's not only up to us, it's up to all of Minnesotans to make sure that we can protect our precious, precious waters here and our natural relatives. So Padama Yayepi, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Ann. I am State Senator Ann Johnson Stewart. I represent Senate District 45, which includes all the communities surrounding Lake Minnetonka. Well, it is a sad day for Minnesota and for the United States. As is my custom, I want to get a little technical here. I want to talk to you about watersheds. A watershed is an area of land that channels the rainfall, the snowmelt, and all runoff into creeks and streams and rivers, and ultimately drains to a larger body of water, like our Lake Superior or the Hudson Bay. A watershed can also include the surrounding land and groundwater and human inhabited areas. Watersheds are established by geography, and humans can do little to control them. Protecting all watersheds is essential for our survival, and in Minnesota, we care deeply about our clean and plentiful water. Watersheds are essential for human survival, providing us clean water for drinking, for agriculture and industry, and for things like tourism. Healthy watersheds also offer other significant economic benefits. And we know that once a watershed is polluted, it is nearly impossible to clean it up. That's why I am so angry about the news from Washington that Pete Stauber's continuing resolution to remove the protections from some of our most treasured watersheds has passed the United States Senate. Federal protections are now gone. Stauber's resolution will allow permits for copper sulfide mines near the boundary waters, and any pollution from them will specifically impact 3 watersheds that all of us should be extremely concerned about, specifically Lake Superior, the Rainy River of the boundary waters, and the Mississippi River. We are not against mining, and to say that is presenting a false choice. We strongly support the iron mining that built Minnesota and the Iron Range. We are strongly against copper sulfide mining within the watersheds that I just mentioned. The Boundary Waters Wilderness Area is a national treasure. There is no remediation if the waters in it are polluted by copper sulfide and nickel mining. When snow or rainwater, or frankly, even humidity in the air, interacts with copper sulfide, sulfuric acid is produced. You know, I have spent time at and with the mines. They propose large water treatment ponds and water treatment systems to treat the water from their mining operations. Those ponds are located right within the watersheds that I talked about. I am a civil engineer, and I know that when we design these ponds, we cannot assume with 100% certainty that they do not leak. That is true. We can never assume 100% reliability. And a leak in one of these ponds would be catastrophic, which is why we must pass the 3 bills that my colleagues standing behind me and I have proposed. First, we have the permanent protection bill that would prohibit copper nickel sulfide mine operations on state-owned lands in the Rainy River watershed and bar the issuance of non-iron mining permits on those lands. Secondly, I have a bill that deals with something called financial assurance. Copper sulfide mining has a terrible history of polluting around the world. Unfortunately, our state's current financial assurance requirements, which is the amount of money that a mining company must put up as insurance, is woefully inadequate to protect against or clean up after an environmental disaster. So the Taxpayer Protection Act, which is my bill, would require non-iron mining companies to fully fund any financial assurance package upfront and in cash. This would ensure Minnesota's taxpayers are not left on the hook for potential billion-dollar cleanup costs from a devastating environmental catastrophe. And lastly, the bad actor bill would prevent Minnesota from issuing non-iron mining permits to bad actors who have violated specific international laws, including corruption and bribery or natural resource destruction. This simple common sense standard will ensure that Minnesota's clean water is not placed in the hands of notorious international mining conglomerates that have no regard for Minnesota's environment. We are resolved to do the work for the people of Minnesota and for the country. And as Senator McEwen says, we are ready for the fight. Is it Swad now? Okay.
Hi, Steve Cwodzinski, Eden Prairie, Minnetonka. Sorry. It's the semi-quincentennial of the Declaration of Independence, and the second paragraph of the Declaration has the words, we hold these truths to be self-evident, all men are created equal, that they're endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among those unalienable rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness. We're gearing up to celebrate the 250th anniversary of those words. And I think some of our colleagues in Washington, D.C. need a reminder of what those words mean. And when Dr. Franklin walked out after signing the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he was greeted by a bunch of citizens. And they all asked him, where's this new government supposed to guarantee us happiness? And his response was, my friends, this new government's going to guarantee you the pursuit of happiness. You, my friends, have to catch it. And that's why I go to the Boundary Waters every year, to catch that piece of happiness. I've missed 2 years since the 70s. 2 years since the 70s that I have not had my peace and my tranquility and my calmness and my pursuit of happiness. The next phrase in the Declaration after that pursuit of happiness is to secure those rights. Governments are instituted among men. We're that government. And to secure those rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Washington, D.C., and now the state of Minnesota, we need to wake up and go, the majority, the majority of the people of this great nation and this great state want the boundary waters preserved. Poll after poll says, leave this world a better place than you found it. Not better for corporations, but better for all Americans that are trying to pursue their little piece of happiness called the boundary waters. When the news came out this morning, I was very discouraged because the words that come to mind and to all of us when we hear the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, think about the words that come to your mind. All those wonderful, peaceful, calm, tranquil words. And today I'm angry and I'm frustrated and I'm thinking of chaos and confusion. And that's not how I want to feel when I hear the words Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. Our goal for all of us is to leave this world a better place than we found it. All of us. That's why we get up out of bed in the morning. How are we leaving this world a better place than we found it? And I think those senators and those House members that voted for this bill today lost sight of the purpose of this government was to guarantee its citizens the pursuit of happiness. And decades ago, our founders set aside over 1 million acres of land in this great nation for us to continue to pursue that happiness. Let's remind them of the goal that we sent them to DC and to St. Paul. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks.
Quick question, I think anybody can answer this. We've heard from Representative Stauber and some other Republicans say that their constituents do support this because they're in favor of bringing some more economic opportunities for northern Minnesotans. So what is your response to that?
I think what they are talking about, some of their constituents, there are some people who are really hopeful. They want better economic conditions. We know that economic conditions throughout the country are very, very hard right now. We have the greatest wealth inequality this nation has seen maybe ever. So people are struggling, working people are struggling, and there are many parts of our state, especially in the Northland, where people have this hope that something will arrive that will improve their conditions. So when a mining company comes with their millions of dollars of ad and propaganda that they're selling to people, oh gosh, it's so hard not to take that hope. And so I feel a lot of compassion and understanding for the people who are saying, yes, bring that kind of mining. I'm going to just trust the company when they say that it's going to be okay, because I really want those jobs. I have a lot of compassion for the people that are feeling that way. But what makes me really mad is that those people are being lied to. They're being lied to and they're being taken advantage of. Their own desperation economically, their hopes for themselves and their families, their kids, their futures, those are being exploited for profit. It's disgusting to me. But what I would say is that while I do know that there are some people in the Northland who do support these proposals in a sort of loose, hopeful way, the majority of Minnesotans, as you heard over and over again, poll after poll, are crystal clear. 70% plus in Minnesota are against this type of mining, specifically if it is done in a way anywhere near the boundary waters that it would affect the boundary waters. And many Northlanders as well. I mean, my hope is that Representative Stauber and some of the other elected politicians up north who have gone along with these proposals and promoted them will have a rude awakening in the fall. I don't think that they're correct in terms of the numbers of people who support this type of mining development in this area that is sacred to everyone. So I think they're wrong, but I also think that they're exploiting people's fears and hopes.
Senator, on that point, Rep. Stauber and sort of his allies have been very loudly saying we did it today and patting themselves on the back. What's your sense of the local DFL up north and whether and how we can try to make this a liability for him as well?
I think that, we're just going to keep telling people what he just did. I think he will have a rude awakening. I think he's sort of in his own bubble of the people who are trying to promote this type of mining. I think he's wrong about the number of people and where people stand and how strongly they feel about this particular issue. It's one thing to talk about mining development, but we heard in our press conference today the delineation, right, that Senator Johnson Stewart gave, which was spot on. What we're talking about is not anti-mining in any way. What they're trying to do is bring an entirely new type of mining that has a perfect record of toxicity around the world to our state to run experiments on us. So it's nice to sort of for them to say to their constituents and to the people of my community, hey, we got this idea for some jobs. We got this idea that'll bring some money in. But this is, once it actually is here at our doorstep and we're looking at what that type of mining inevitably will do to our waters and our people, then understanding what corporate actors like that do over and over and over again, where they pass off the costs and they take the gains and then they're out of here. I think people know that. And honestly, there's probably, out of all of Minnesota, the people of Northeast Minnesota know that better than any of the other people in Minnesota, because they've been taken advantage of over and over again by corporate power. So I think as the reality of what this type of mining would mean really sets in and people are talking amongst themselves in community, I think that Representative Stauber is going to have a rude awakening.
Senator Johnson Stewart, you mentioned your permanent protection bill on state-owned lands. Can you just address how that would, or explain how that would address some of your concerns with this federal repeal? I mean, because this is for what they passed is for a federal.
So that's not my bill. I believe that's Senator Cwodzinski's. But that's okay. You want to?
I didn't hear the question. I tuned out as soon as you said Ann Johnson Stewart. So.
Yes.
What was the question?
I mean, how it was explained is that it would be a protection bill for state-owned.
That's the only sovereign land, or the land that we would have any sovereignty over. So there's a gap there on federal land and access to federal land, but this is I think it's going to end up being in the courts. This could be good news. Silver lining, this could take years before we work this out, but for today, we just want to, I think we're very blessed to have Senator McEwen's voice and her fervor, passion for this issue, and I do believe we've well over 3 bills in the Senate dealing with and we're all trying to fill the pieces. Another point of life is to solve as much of the puzzle as possible. So what we in the Senate, we've introduced all this little pockets of legislation that have tried to help save the boundary waters and friends of the boundary waters as they've come to our office to advocate for the preservation of this precious resource. And
I have the bill numbers if you want them. So the bill number, we have so many bills, I'm sure you don't know the actual. Yeah, the Senate file 875, and it's the House file for that is House file 309. And the way that some of the biggest differences, the Prove It First legislation that I have been carrying would apply to the entire state of Minnesota and has that sort of check on an actual requirement to prove it first, to prove the existence of this type of mine, open for 10 years, then closed for 10 years, that hasn't polluted before they could be permitted in any of the watersheds. But then we also have this more narrowly tailored bills that really go toward protecting the watersheds that would impact the boundary waters, and that is Senator Cwodzinski's bill. So I mean, there's broad support for all of these efforts, and we need hearings on these bills. We need discussion of these bills. We need not to be shut down, which has too often been the case. And now, just with this federal decision, we can't be playing these games in Minnesota anymore with this. As I said in my remarks, we always used to be able to count on the federal government and federal EPA, federal regulations, officials to come in and kind of save us from ourselves if we don't have it together. But now we have a federal government that is just totally allied with those international mining conglomerates and doing their bidding. So we're going to have to step it up.
Is there any Republican support for those bills? And also, who is shutting you down? You mentioned being shut down.
There has been some limited support, especially for the more narrowly tailored bills, I think. And as we move forward, if we are able to secure hearings and support for having hearings and more discussion about these bills, I think we'll be able to suss that out a little bit better. And I don't know, I wouldn't name names, but I think that there are a limited amount of Republicans who have signaled some support for at least coming together in cooperation around this type specifically of mining and around protecting the boundary waters as a sense of, more conservative sense of conservation. So it really should be a bipartisan effort.
You know, I do want to point out the taxpayer protection bill that talks about financial assurance. That's my bill. That should be something that every elected official is strongly for. And that's, in fact, the reason that I presented it. Right now, we require something called financial assurance. You could think of it like a bond. And what it means is when there's a large construction project, the company has to put up financial assurance that covers any problems. Let's say they go bankrupt during the project duration, or something happens and they're not able to finish, or while they're building it, they have something that happens. Financial assurance protects the taxpayer, the owner, we call it in construction words, the owner or the sponsor of the project. In Minnesota, financial assurance is paltry, especially when you consider the cost to clean up the boundary waters. So if, in fact, the mine on the shores of Birch Lake is approved and they start building, the financial assurance, I wish I had the numbers, but you guys are reporters, you can look it up. I think it is some very small number that the mining company is allowed to pay over time. So that doesn't even account for the fact that if a catastrophe happened year one, we haven't even gotten the small amount yet. And once they hit a specific year, again, you can follow up with me if you want the real data, but once they hit a specific year, they're done paying. Well, my thought is, how much do you think it would cost to clean up the boundary waters? I don't know. Couple $1 billion, maybe hundreds of billions? Like, is it so invaluable that we couldn't even put a cost on it? Well, as taxpayers, we should be protected from that, especially with the poor record that these mining companies have. There was an enormous dam failure in Brazil that not only killed hundreds of people, but it caused environmental damage that can never be fixed. And let's just say worst case scenario, we allow these mines to be constructed. We should at least have the financial assurance that if the worst thing happens, we're covered. So I look forward to many of my Republican colleagues signing on to that one, because I think that's just good government.
I wanted to just comment one more on something Senator McEwen and Senator Johnson Stewart said, and that is when Senator McEwen talked about how why are people falling for this if they're being told what I'd argue is propaganda. And one of the arguments they always say is we have some of the strongest environmental protections in the world. If we don't build it here with our strong protection, they'll build them elsewhere. Senator Johnson Stewart mentioned that dam in Brazil. Yeah, there were 2 dam breaks in Brazil, killing 250 people in one of them, maybe 300. That type of dam, Brazil decided was a bad type of dam, and not only are they not allowing that type of upstream, I think it's called, dam, they're not allowing them anymore, but they're actually trying to take out some existing ones, which is incredibly expensive. And they were permitted to build that kind of dam up north here in Minnesota.
That was the type of dam?
Yes, the same type of dam, the one that killed all those people, that's been permitted here. We're permitting things that other countries are banning, these third world countries with no environmental standards. And the financial assurance issue, again, the one that they had in that mine too, between Glencore and Polymet in that mine, they had it so it was all Glencore, which is the big investor, the corrupt international corporation, they would take the money and run in the first 10 years, and the money didn't really start filling the fund until after 10 years. And then there's a small shell corporation that's not going to have the money to pay for it, and taxpayers get stuck. So the issue is that when they are telling people, oh, I'd support this because we got better environmental laws, but they have to be enforced, and they're not being enforced in the right way. That's why the financial assurance is so important. Well, I prove it first because our laws, if we ever had the strictest in the world, they're not enforced in a way that you would call them anywhere near the strictest in the world. They're weaker in some ways than these third world countries have.
Excellent point.
Just a question on timing, is this a next session push at this point, just to be realistic? And then also, Save the Boundary Waters is asking for the Walz administration, the DNR, to revoke a permit. I don't know if you all are up to speed on that particular approach. Is that something you want to see? Is that a real thing?
Yes. It's something that I can't speak for everybody here, but I strongly support that, and that is what I'm calling for, actions like that. I do think, your point about where we are in session is a good one. The timing of this is a little difficult in terms of whether or not we'd be able to get hearings on our bills or, but I am looking, I'm going to have these discussions with our colleagues to see what are the appropriate actions that we all should be taking right now. What are the actions that we are going to be calling on the governor to take, be calling on our agencies to take, because things are different now. We're in a different space than we were even in yesterday. So yeah, any and all actions, I think, are where we need to go.
Thank you, everyone. That wraps up your time. And again, if you have any questions for folks who had to leave before you got to ask them, you can come back to bonding.
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.